you suffer from nightmares, flashbacks, hallucinations? Is it impacting your ability to do everyday activities like take over as crime boss? Do you feel uneasy and unable to trust people around you? Then talk to your doctor about quercetin. Quercetin may not be for everyone. Common side effects include lost limbs, hairballs, and a sudden urge to urinate. Do not take quercetin if you do not have health insurance, as unexpected injuries have been reported. Ask your doctor if quercetin is right for you, because as long as the galaxy has crime lords, there'll always be a need for quercetin. Well, hello, and welcome to Streaming Star Wars. Nick, how are you, my friend? How's it going?
It's Friday. We're here again. We made it. We got through that midweek excitement of watching Book of Boba Fett and then having to wait to get here to Friday night to talk about it.
Right. Well, literally hundreds of other podcasts have had their say, and now it's time to bring it all home. We're sort of like,
that's right.
I like to think of us as the cleanup hitter, as the anchor to all the thinking. But on a serious note, though, I do like doing this a couple days later because it gives us a little bit of time to think about it, kind of process, take a look at what the chatter is on the internet, and sort of watch it multiple times. How many times have you watched the latest episode of Book of Boba Fett? 3 times.
3 times. Yep, I watched it. This is kind of my routine on Wednesday mornings. My oldest daughter, who's 13 in 8th grade, she's my Star Wars kid. We get up and watch it at like 5:30 in the morning before school. Nice. And then usually by the time I get to my office, I put it on my phone with an earbud in while I'm getting my day started. And then the third one comes, some other time during the week.
Yeah. And, you and I went back and forth a little bit today, and it's just interesting. I think because we're so focused as Star Wars nerds, it feels like this episode's been out for like 3 weeks because we've assessed it and analyzed it and talked about it and seen the conversation. So it's been kind of a wild ride. But hey, tonight we have a very special guest joining us.
Yes,
who will join us right after the news. Tell us a little bit about our guest, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Our guest tonight is Mr. Patrick Cotnoir. Patrick is the producer of the George Lucas Talkshow. He has done booking and stuff for Marvel. He's a part of Rat Scraps. He is one of the funniest people that I've gotten the opportunity to meet over the course of the last year. Quarantine, lockdown, pandemic, podcasts, all that fun stuff. He was on Podcast to the Wheels with me.
Yeah.
Back earlier this year. We had a great time. We talked about his top 7 Cantina cuties. We went through the different people in the Cantina that, had a special place in,
sure.
Yeah, pretty special place in his heart. And now we're getting new Cantina cuties, which is fun. So he's a great Star Wars fan. He's a great just pop culture person. He does crazy late night live streams on Instagram. I was on with him one night last week where he was talking about your least favorite movie, and he let me come on and we talked about how I hate the movie Good Burger. But yeah, he's just one of my favorite people to interact with in this weird virtual friend space that we have. So I'm excited to get Patrick to hang out with us tonight.
That's awesome. Well, as the streamer says across the bottom, Patrick's going to join us after the news. So why don't we just skip all the pleasantries and get straight to the news?
Absolutely.
Well, Lego Star Wars gets a release date. Bad Batch is coming soon. And we got some late-breaking news coming from casting about Ahsoka. So give us 5 minutes, and we'll give you the galaxy. Another week, another flood of news, rumors, clickbait, and conversation. This is Pete Fletzer, and welcome to Disturbances in the Force. Well, after literally years of delays, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga finally has an official release date of April 5th, 2022. On Thursday morning, a 6.5-minute trailer dropped, complete with extensive looks at gameplay. The game's going to be available on Xbox platforms, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, as well as PCs. Players will be able to play through all 9 of the saga films, visit 24 planets, and play as over 300 characters. More information on the title can be found at starwars.com. And while Star Wars fans patiently wait for information and formal announcements about release dates for upcoming live-action properties like Andor and Obi-Wan Kenobi, news silently broke on the next season of The Bad Batch. In a sidebar found in the latest print version of Star Wars Insider magazine, it said that the animated sequel to the Clone Wars series is getting season number 2 in the spring of this year. There were no further details included other than it will be starring, no surprise, D. Bradley Baker, the voice of all the clones in Bad Batch and the Clone Wars, and Michelle Ang, who voiced the young clone Omega. There's no word on how many episodes season 2 will be, but the first season featured 16. In an interview with Radio Times this week, Ming-Na Wen, the actress who plays Master Assassin Fennec Shand in the Book of Boba Fett, talked about her feelings about the show, and she said, quote, "I really hope that fans want to go back and see the whole thing over again in a different light after, knowing how things have," I'm being very careful with my words here, "how things have evolved and all these other elements that have come into play." She went on to say, in reference to creators Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they are so knowledgeable about this world, about Star Wars, and they're such huge fans that they know how to set up pieces and make moves that you don't even know are coming. Well, Star Wars music fans got a pleasant surprise this week when part 1 of the Book of Boba Fett soundtrack dropped on Spotify and many other music platforms. Featuring music from chapters 1 through 4 of the show, composed by Joseph Shirley and Ludwig Göransson, listeners are treated to 17 songs over 65 minutes of soundtrack. Göransson, who won Grammys for his work on The Mandalorian and an Oscar for Black Panther, is sharing scoring duties on the show with Joseph Shirley, who has over 30 composing credits to his name, including Disney's The Mysterious Benedict Society. Cuts on the soundtrack include the theme song for the show and titles like The Twins, The Mod Parlor, and Stop That Train. The Book of Boba Fett soundtrack is available now wherever you get your music. Well, some exclusive rumors regarding the Kenobi and Andor live-action Star Wars shows from Disney Plus dropped today from our friends over at Star Wars Sessions in the UK. First, their sources tell them that Andor has been shot without the use of the volume, the groundbreaking video wall technology that's been used extensively for both Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. They also revealed that the show will be, quote, very dark. Their sources went so far as to call it born of the Star Wars universe. And it is a fact that Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, was a big part of the creation of the Bourne series of films. This matches rumblings of other Around the Galaxy sources. On the Obi-Wan Kenobi front, sources tell Star Wars Sessions that it is being billed in the studio as the biggest Star Wars event in years, and that the limited series will, quote, shock everyone. This is a very new story for Obi-Wan, and that, quote, people aren't prepared for how different this show is going to be. All generations of fans will be catered to. This is truly transitional Star Wars. There are still no official release dates for either Andor or Kenobi. And finally, in some late-breaking news that came from The Hollywood Reporter, claiming that actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead has joined the cast of the live-action Disney Plus series Ahsoka. Winstead was most recently seen in the Netflix thriller Kate, and before that, played Huntress in 2019's Birds of Prey. The actress was in 10 Cloverfield Lane, as well as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. There is still no official word on the shooting or release date for the series, starring Rosario Dawson reprising her role as the title character. Well, that wraps it up for this week's Disturbances in the Force. Make sure to check out the Around the Galaxy podcast for weekly one-on-one interviews with the people behind the fandom. This Thursday, Around the Galaxy celebrates our 150th episode with me as the guest. So please subscribe for regular updates. Follow us on all your social media channels at ATGcast and visit our website at atgcast.com to keep up with us, find our merch, and get information about supporting the show as an ATGcast patron. Thank you so much for listening, and may the Force be with you. So there's our news.
There it is. Just like that. Another amazing newscast, another amazing opportunity. And we even joked about this before we came on air. These late breaking stories. It's exciting right now that Star Wars news is coming kind of fast and furious. Like you texted me earlier today, you had your news segment written. And then at like 5:30, the Mary Elizabeth Winstead thing dropped. And it was, holy cow, we got to add it in. So of course,
it's always on Fridays. It's always on Fridays
every
at
time.
Like 5 o'clock. So.
That's right. We jinx it every week when you say it's kind of a slow news week, and then all of a sudden all these things happen.
I know. I texted you that. I was like, yeah, it's kind of a slow week this week. Well,
and I believe I said famous last words. So
exactly.
Lesson learned. Before we get to our guests, just real quick, I do want to shout out all of our friends in the chat. We've got a bunch of folks hanging out, all of our regular folks, new folks. We're excited y'all are here. We're excited that you're here talking about Book of Boba Fett with us. And we're excited that you get to hang out with our guest, Patrick, tonight, because Patrick is a great Star Wars fan. And I think this is probably the right opportunity to bring Patrick in, isn't it, Pete?
Let's do it.
Whoa. Was not expecting that. That
Patrick, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I appreciate you calling me a great Star Wars fan. I also completely forgot about that Boba Fett tweet, so I'm very happy that it came back up.
Well, and if we're being fair, being taller than Boba Fett is a personal victory.
It is. I think tomorrow's 5'7", and I'm 5'8", so that was, I was like, this is great. This is not what I expected, but I love it.
Hey, it's totally legit.
How tall is Ming-Na Wen? That's the question.
It's a great question.
What do they do? Are they digging Tom Cruise tunnels like nearby? Is she that they shoot their scenes with each other?
5'4".
Oh,
5,
okay.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
Very short show, and I like it.
Well, and I've had a thought too, and I thought this a couple of times, of course, in the first episode where we get Black Chrysanthemum, and I haven't taken the opportunity to look up who it is that's playing Black Chrysanthemum in the physical costume and all that. There's certainly some camera tricks going on. There's some moments when you recognize that like they're shooting it in a way that makes, but Wookiees are tall as a general rule. That's what we know. And when you have Peter Mayhew, when you have Jonas playing Wookiees, these are guys that are 7 feet tall. I don't think the actor that's playing BK is that tall. And so you have little moments where you start to think, is that is that person that tall? Is that, I don't know. It's a little bit more tricky than the traditional Wookiees we're used to.
I mean, now I'm going to look up just so we can have the answer to this. Okay. How tall do you think he is? Sorry to monopolize this. How tall do you guys think he is?
I'm going to go with 6'1".
I'm going to go 6'3".
Guys, 6'7".
6. Okay. All right.
Okay. 6'7". Totally fair.
And you're looking at 5'7" Tamora Morrison, so it works. It works.
Yeah.
You got a good foot there. And those Trandoshans that they got in this episode, they were probably like 5'6", 5'7". We're selling it.
Yeah, I don't know their heights. I'm sorry.
Can you look that up for us, Patrick?
Yeah, I
we're not going to put that on you. We didn't bring you here to work for us, Patrick. We brought you here to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this episode specifically. But first, let's hear. We did a poll, as we have done every single week, to see how people felt about this episode. So let's see what they had to say. Well, so we asked people. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself here on the questions. We said, now that you've seen Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett, of all the episodes, where does this one rank? And interestingly, 90% of people essentially think it's either the best yet or their second favorite. More people think it's their second favorite than the best yet, but still, I mean, quite a respectable place for this episode. Where did it fall for you, Patrick? How did you feel about this episode?
I mean, I think it's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think, right? Yeah. I don't know. This one had a lot of things that I call like Patrick things. This one hit a lot of Patrick buttons, and I like that. It was like,
that's what Star Wars is about.
Exactly. There were a lot of creatures. Keep going back to the bar, and I really like that. I like that Max Rebo's basically in every episode. Big fan of that.
Yes.
had the, my boy the catcher, the little cute droid. So you had the cute Star Wars factor, which I think is an important Star Wars. But yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
I think that's something people leave out of important things in Star Wars. Cuteness, whether you like it or not. I think it's you need something like that in a Star Wars to get a successful Star Wars.
I think you're right. It's funny because like you forget that a show like that, one of the things that we had talked about months and months and months ago during Mandalorian was, well, we didn't like that a lot of the aliens spoke English. And then what I had to remind them of is, I have a 9-year-old son who's trying to keep up with the show. So the shows are aimed toward that broad audience. So you do need the cute LEP droid as well as the ferocious and frightening Chrysanthemum. So that's a great catch there.
And I mean, also the Sarlacc scene is terrifying too. Like it has scary stuff in this show, and then they're able to balance it with the goofy, silly stuff. And I don't know. I feel like this show specifically is getting a very mixed reaction that I didn't really expect when I was watching it, because I've been watching it and I'm like, yeah, I like it. It's fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got little quibbles here and there, but nothing too crazy. I've had fun with every episode for the most part. Maybe not agreed with every choice, but I'm having a good time.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? Where did it come in for you?
I mean, I think it's easily right up. And again, and I'm, you and I talk a lot about offline trying to decide, what are we complaining about? Is there really anything to complain about? Because we're Star Wars fans and we're getting new Star Wars. Like that's,
right.
I'm not here to complain. I'm here to be thankful that I get new Star Wars. So I've loved it all. Like Patrick said, like I have little quibbles. I have little moments where I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like last week, I think my biggest thing was in the speeder chase. I felt like for the first time, and shout out to Michael Nipp for bringing this to my attention, I felt like for the first time last week, I saw the volume. Like there were moments in that speeder chase where it felt a little bit more like the green screen of the prequels that all stood out to, fans of our age and that kind of thing. Although Patrick's way younger than us. Don't let him fool you. But as far as this episode goes, I mean, yeah, it's right up there. I think the one where they really get into, the Tusken backstory and Boba, kind of becoming a part of that tribe, that was really special to me because I thought that did a lot for Indigenous people and, just again, I get really tickled, and we've talked, every week that we've done this about the outcry about how we're changing Boba Fett. This is a character that had 4 lines and 6.5 minutes of screen time, and we're talking about how he's being changed completely. Like, we didn't know who he was. What are we really talking about here? That's
an interesting comment because you're right. It's changing what people put in their own heads. The way I put it is, it's action figure fantasies. Like I had different expectations of everybody between Star Wars and Empire and Jedi, and so we're not really changing anything. And as I said last week, which I think is a really important point, and I think something worth reminding anybody who has that complaint, is that all those badass Boba Fett stories still exist. They still are out there in the comic books, and there's EU stories, things like that. They all still exist. This is just a different time of Boba Fett. My life before this age was a little bit more different than it is
and that's
now,
exactly
right?
what I was going to come to. If we're basing it on the timeline that we know, we've approximated that Boba Fett is supposed to be 42, 43, right? Isn't that, the approximated understanding of his age in the show?
Yeah.
I'm 43 years old. Where I am now is not where I was 10 or 20 years ago when I was 23 years old.
But you look better than Boba Fett, for sure.
But it makes sense. But it makes sense that things are different. It makes things that we evolve, that we change. We become different people. I'm a father of 4. Like, my life now is not what it was 15, 20 years ago. Boba Fett has been through things. He's been in a Sarlacc. He's been attacked and had the crap beaten out of him who knows how many times. Yes, he's going to change. Yes, he's going to evolve. Somebody, I think in this episode, the question was asked when he finds Fennec. That's exactly what it was. He finds Fennec and she says, so you want to be, I forget what she said, but basically she was like, you're a hunter. Why do you want to settle down and be the head of a crime family?
Yeah.
And he was like, things change. Like, things are different. And I think that's, Star Wars fandom doesn't sometimes stop and go, oh yeah, we could compare this to real life and we'd understand it. We just go, why isn't it the thing I thought it was?
And for a group of fans that complain about things like dropping bombs in space as not being real, tend to forget that when you've gone through the things that our characters Luke and Boba have gone through, they're going to change. They're going to change a bit. Patrick, you said that this wasn't what you expected when the show started 4 weeks ago. What did you think Book of Boba Fett was like? What was your expectation going into the show?
It's a great question. I'm very much a spoilers boy. I like hanging out on those leaks subreddits. Like I like to be spoiled because I think it's fun. It's fun reading the fake ones, and then it's fun reading the real ones, and then look back and being like, oh yeah, that was a load of garbage. Like that was not true. But this show has not had a ton of stuff leak out of it.
Right.
So I didn't really know what to expect. Like I knew Chris Hansen would show up at some point because there was like someone got a picture of him outside or something like that.
Yeah.
But like nothing major really come out. So I don't think I really knew what it would be. I did not expect the flashbacks to be an ongoing thing.
Right.
It would be like, oh, we'd get one episode, just like filling in the gaps and then we move on it. And maybe we're done with it. Since they say he's like done with the Bacta at this point, it's like, are we still gonna get flashbacks or are we all done?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. The characterization again slightly changed. Doesn't bother me. I was never like a Boba Fett guy like that I did not make that my entire personality, like some people online have. I'm also someone where like I pretty much like all Star Wars stuff. Like the couple examples of things I do not like, but even in those, I will find things in them that I do like. So it's very hard, I think, to disappoint me. I love the first 30 minutes of Return of the Jedi. I love the rest of Return of the Jedi too, but I love the first 30 minutes, like Jabba's palace, all the Tatooine stuff's like real. That was the stuff I would rewind and watch over and over again as a kid. And the fact that we're pretty much getting a TV show of the first 20 minutes of Return of the Jedi, it feels like it's got a very similar vibe. I'm all for it. So I don't really know what I expect, but I'm okay with what we're getting.
Yeah. No, and what's interesting too with this episode, and as I was saying before, Nick and I kind of have been speaking over just the last 2 days since the show's been out, 3 days. There was so much that happened in this episode. You got the full Fennec backstory. You finally saw that closure. I love the way they connected the flare popping up from the Mandalorian, a little bit of the Mando music, and then showed the scene again. I found online they actually used the same exact scene of him walking up to Fennec, but there was different sound effects, which is interesting. They got rid of the spurs.
The spurs, yeah.
So, but it was cool to see.
Because I thought I heard some spurs.
What I had seen, it looks like they actually got rid of the spurs for this version of it.
Okay.
But interesting that the connection to the mod, the mod team working with actually saving Fennec's life, and that's why she's got that full on mechanical midsection that's uncovered, which I thought was just so cool. And I love that sort of full circleness of it, and again, and that was a good percentage of this episode. I think a lot of this episode was longer in flashback than I think we realized.
It was one of those things that you get those moments and you wait for what's coming next. And what was coming next was the big piece that we feel like we had been missing prior to this, which was the ship. We had gotten the tease of the ship in, the trailers that we had gotten up to this point. And then it's okay, he's got Fennec. It connects the dots to that part of Mando. We're coming full circle. And like you said, Pete, we seemingly are done with the Bacta tank. And I reached the point where I was comparing the Bacta tank to like Wayne's World with the, for the flashbacks. That's what the Bacta tank had become.
Yeah.
So now we're going full speed into the future. But we can't do that without getting the ship back, because that was another key part. In fact, we know because of Mandalorian, he gets the ship before he gets the armor. And so to, see those gaps filled in, which is, I think, what we kind of expected, was still fun. Patrick, where does the ship stand for you? And again, you're not a Boba guy. I was not a huge Boba guy. He was just cool looking, but I wasn't obsessed. Did the ship carry anything for you?
Here's what it carried for me. It was a cool Lego set, and that's what it carried for me. It was just like, yeah, it's a cool looking ship. But I don't. Here was something I was trying to think of today. Do they ever see Slave One in canon?
They say it in one episode of Clone Wars.
Yep. Okay. That's it.
Okay. But also, the way he does it in this show does not mean that they have taken away the name. Maybe 100%. They have, but the way he says it, where he's like, I think I saw someone on Twitter say, it was like if I called my car Betty, okay? But you guys don't know that my car's name is Betty. I would not say, let's go pick up Betty. I'd say, let's go pick up my, Ford Fiesta or whatever.
Right. Yes.
Be more general about it, which is fine. Right. Guys, it's fine. It's fine.
Right,
right. It has this whole quote unquote controversy has been very easy to find out who to block on Twitter. So that has been the
exactly. Right. Yes, it has. If the name Slave One is so important to you, we probably shouldn't be. And not because, and honestly, it has nothing to do with the political ramifications. It's just like you are so set in your "this is not my Star Wars" that I don't want to continue that conversation. I get it, because honestly, I still call it Slave One, because when I was a kid, I remember calling it Slave One, and I get it, and it's it is really interesting to see that it just doesn't matter that much. It's what the problem. I think the thing that stinks about it is that it has become another rallying cry for people who want to find something wrong with the way Star Wars is today. The people who, unlike, as Nick always says on every show, we're getting Star Wars every week. Why are we complaining? Like, why are you complaining about that? The ship is still awesome. It still has the seismic charges. Yeah. It still looks cool as hell.
Yeah.
Call it Betty.
It honestly makes me think about, and this may or may not be a good comparison, it makes me think about the reboot of the Dukes of Hazzard they did with Johnny Knoxville a few years ago, when they're stuck in Atlanta traffic on I-85, and he looks on the top of the car and there's a Confederate flag, and he kind of has that moment where he goes, this may not be great. Like, it's this, what are we talking about here? Like, at what point do we realize, this doesn't work? It's okay. We're just moving on.
Yeah. Well, the other point that I made on Twitter, that I was pretty proud of this tweet, where I was talking about how, based on what we've seen with Boba Fett in this last 5 years of his life, the name Slave One might not be something he wants to go back to, right? Absolutely. Like if I called my car Betty because I was dating a woman named Betty and I was madly in love and she cheated on me, I'm not going to call my car Betty anymore. It's going to
we're going to move on,
right? And it's just the name you give your vehicle. It's not that critical. I mean, honestly, it's and this is the thing that drives me crazy. I talked to Nick about this the other day. I have it on really good authority, like direct authority, that they're not changing the name.
Yeah.
And because of my journalistic integrity, I can't share the clip that I have talking to somebody about it. But they're not changing it. What they're doing is they're just not using it because it doesn't need to be there. And I think, and I hope, and I really would love to see this. This is part of the story somehow. I would love to see Boba Fett name his ship something that means something. The Raider or something, something that's related.
I saw somebody.
The rat catcher.
The rat catcher. I mean, what more do we want than for it to be called the rat catcher? I mean, let's be serious. This says it all right here.
It kind of looks like you can make a Slave One out of that thing, I think.
Yeah, you turn it sideways, we're in the same neighborhood. And I saw somebody else.
It actually looks like, is it Dooku's ship? If you flip it sideways, bring it back up. Wasn't Dooku's ship sort of shaped like that?
Sort of, and it kind of looks like Darth Maul's ship. Okay, all right.
That Sith infiltrator, whatever it was called. Well, and you're right, Pete. And I think I saw, and it was probably in somebody else's stream. Actually, it may have been Skywalking Through the League, Bill and Trey, earlier tonight. somebody in their chat section said, what if he decided to call it Django's Legacy? What if he decided to call it, any number of other things?
Mm-hmm.
It's a name. Like if you're asking somebody to help you find your car, you're going to tell them what kind of car it is, not, hey, this is what I named it. It's just, it's silly.
It's the mall parking lot.
And the other part, and even to speak to what you said, Pete, if you want any further proof, go to starwars.com, go to the data bank where they have every bit of information about planets, characters, ships, all those things.
Yeah.
And if you look up Slave One, it's still there. It's just, it is what it is.
Yep.
What else? What else have you guys seen in this episode? Patrick, what are some other things that kind of stood out to you, were big rocks or big, moments that you really liked?
Yeah. I liked the Trandoshan getting arm ripped off. But it was fun that it was only one arm. I like that. I don't know why I like it, but I like it. I think it's fascinating that he's not bleeding. I find that interesting.
That's also very Star Wars, though. We get Mos Eisley with the arm cut off, and it's there's a little bit of blood, but it's not really bleeding.
Yeah, I really liked the drone going through the castle, the palace, and
that was very cool.
Thought it really felt like I was playing Battlefront 2. I was just like, oh yeah, I know where he's going. Sure. I liked, obviously the Sarlacc stuff I really liked. I think it's, people are also mad, I've noticed, that he doesn't seem, he's like, oh, my armor's inside the Sarlacc, when he was like wearing it when he got out, but he was very at it, and he was like not meant to be there when he came out of that Sarlacc. So like, it makes sense that he would not remember all of those things that happened immediately right after.
Well, I will, what I will say with that, and I did find it kind of strange because they spent so much time on something that we knew the answer to.
Yeah.
So that was a little, like, from a pure storytelling standpoint. However, the way I looked at it is, it was an opportunity to show that was like the budding relationship of him and Fennec, right? It was, I'm along for the ride. And then she was clever enough to help blow up the Sarlacc and that sort of thing. So don't touch my buttons.
I was also very nervous because the last time we saw the Sarlacc, it seemed like they were purposefully hiding whether there was a beacon there or not.
Yeah.
And the fact that we got the beak this week made me very happy.
We got the beak back.
I like the beak.
I had this thought, and this is a shot from what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's cool.
We get the ship, it's pulled down, the seismic charge, which of course we got in Attack of the Clones. We get it, returning in Mando. We get it again as the Sarlacc swallows it.
Yeah.
The thought that hit me, and I think it maybe was while I got this screenshot, what do you think would have happened if this was one of the images that we got in one of the trailers? How wild would people have gone if all they see is like a face planted, Boba Fett starship with what seems to be an explosion? Like, everybody would have gone crazy.
Yeah.
I
think they would have to, in some trailers, how they'll paint some things out. You can't tell really what's going on in the scene.
Nice.
I feel like they would have to paint out the rest of the sail barge just because, like, then you know exactly what's happening.
Give you no context for it. Yeah. I think that would work for sure.
Well, and I think, as we think about getting back into his ship, and we think about the comment, and Patrick, you brought it up, about, this isn't the Boba Fett that I remember from being a kid. He's not ruthless. We've seen Boba Fett in this very episode, because they flash back to it, where he basically shoots Bib Fortuna in the face. And then he flies his starship, the Fire Spray gunship, and takes out an entire gang. That's ruthless, because he has zero disadvantage in this fight. It's just going in. He even fires off a missile just to make sure he gets those last guys. That's pretty ruthless. That's pretty badass. And it's the tough guy that we all believe Boba is. That's the Boba we grew up with right there.
Yeah. But, people have their opinions, and it's very hard to change their minds once minds are made up. And I don't think people, I don't think the people who are complaining about Boba being, a wimp this time around are going to be like, "Oh, never mind, I was wrong." You're not going to hear the end of that argument.
These are
It's
right.
gonna
These
go
are
on
not
forever.
conversations you'll see on Twitter. Very rarely do you
Yeah.
see, "Oh, yep, my bad."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Turns out I may have gotten ahead of myself.
Patrick, what did you think of the mod, the whole mod parlor, and what do you think about the role of that particular kind of subculture within Tatooine?
Yeah, it's very I sort of like things that don't necessarily feel like Star Wars showing up in Star Wars.
Hmm.
And I don't know that this really like this feels like something out of Star Wars video game
Yes.
in a
Yep.
way that I like. In a way where it's like, oh yeah, this is weird, this is strange, it's not something we're used to seeing. The music very bizarre in that scene because the music is very like. And when I found out that the guy who plays the doctor, the mod doctor, whatever you want to call him,
Yeah.
the leader of the mod squad, we'll call him, he's a DJ. Like that's in real life, he is a DJ, and I'm like, I wonder if that was his music.
So it turns out he's a guy named Thundercat. He plays he plays bass for Suicidal Tendencies and a number of other things. And the bass line in that song apparently came from him, which is
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so I did some digging on this guy as a bass player myself and found that actually on his left hand that he plays bass with, he's got a Darth Vader tattoo. So he's also just a huge Star Wars nerd like us.
Sure.
So
yeah, I liked it. It's real weird. I think that's why I like those because it keeps getting weird and
Yeah.
it like doesn't feel safe. Like it doesn't feel like what you expect to be, and it keeps just doing weird stuff that would be in the expanded universe books or in the video games or like old comics or whatever. Where you're like, yeah, this is like this is funky, but I like it.
But it's a you bring up a really great point because it kind of goes with, and I hate to keep going back to this subject, but if I mean I understand a lot of people were unhappy that the EU went away, and I get that. I totally understand that, and I respect that. But this is, and I think what we're seeing throughout this entire series, and you brought it up earlier, Nick, this entire series is Star Wars EU books, like just the craziest, weirdest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's all being put in here. You've got,
Yeah.
Max Rebo and Figrin Dan are back playing in a band together. You've got a beautiful Twi'lek running, essentially probably a house of prostitution and a casino. Sure. You've got twin huts being carried around the streets of Tatooine. I mean, this is everything I think we want, and it's just getting stranger in a good way, which is great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I threw it up just a second ago. I'm going to do it again because it deserves it. I mean, Madame Garza, Jennifer Beal, like
she's great.
We need more of this. We need more of her. We need more of her. Putting her hand on BK's shoulder and saying, hey, everything's going to be fine. Like we get this moment where she's like, it's okay. We don't have to do this. We'll wipe out your bar tab. Everything's going to be cool. But like Space Jennifer Beal, I'm here for it. Like,
here's my one little beef with her and Space Dave Pasquazi. I don't want them to be flesh colored. A little funky. Give me a little more funky colors,
That's right.
Like the yellow one and the green one that we got. Sure.
Yeah. That's my one little thing.
I like that. So
I love this comment. Let me throw this out. I'm sorry, Pete.
Cool.
Sure.
Scott Riffin's chiming in, and he said the music in the mod scene was a hybrid of acoustic and synthesized, just as they were making synthetic additions to people.
Whoa.
And Scott, I didn't notice that, but that is great insight. That's really cool.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that. Great observation. That was great. I think that's again, as weird as the music was, and as different as what was happening there, it was Star Wars. It was Star Wars comic book. Now I don't keep up with the comic books, but our friend like Chris Ryans and Dan Miller, they do, and so we're kind of up to that kind of thing. It just felt good. We were talking about BK and Madame Garza and watching Boba Fett watch that whole thing go down. literally seeing a Trandoshan thrown next to him, and just the look on Tamar Morrison's face was perfect, pitch perfect. And I think one of the things that was great about that was it was insight to where we are with the story. I said it last week. One of the things that Boba said in The Mandalorian was sometimes fate steps in and smiles on the wretched. And BK was given the option to take the high road and get his bar tab wiped, but he stuck to his conviction. His conviction was, I'm going to rip the arm off a Trandoshan tonight. That's what I'm going to do. I've been drinking. I'm pissed. I hate Trandoshans. And she gave him a deal, and he was like, nope, this is what I decided to do. And Boba's response was not, oh, not in my town or anything like that. He followed him out the door and said, you need a job. Let's work together. And I like that a lot, because I think that shows what, Boba's looking for people who are committed to whatever they're committed to, right? Boba's committed to. We still don't know why he's doing this. Other than, I don't buy exactly what he said in the sand with Fennec, that he's just, he's tired of working for idiots. There's more to what he's trying to do. I don't know what it is, but I really liked that kind of character study of Boba during that scene as well.
I do want to pop in because you said you don't keep up with the comics. The original Afro run, when BK shows up, it's really good. And it feels very much like Space Indiana Jones, which is what everyone says, but really, BK's very cool in it, and all of her, her droids are very cool. And it's a fairly easy read. It's only probably 25 issues or something like that. And I think if people have not read it, if I was to recommend any of the comics, I would say that initial run of Afro's really good.
Well, Patrick, that also sets up very nicely an opportunity for us to talk about our guest next week. As much as just so people, Patrick, you're welcome to join us every single week if you like. But next week we're going to have Heather Antos, who was working on the BK comics at the time. So she's going to give us some insight into him next week. But
absolutely,
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Pete.
Look, I'm here for you. I think one of the things that's still missing, and it kind of takes us into our predictions and theories, unless there's anything else from this episode you wanted to touch on. We did
I have one more thing.
Yeah, please.
Was that EV-99 down in the kitchen?
So with EV-99. Here's me.
This is in the cantina, right?
Let me put on my glass so I can do this.
Yeah.
From what I understand, EV-99 was the droid in the cantina in The Mandalorian, which means that this is another version of that droid, unless he had to work two jobs. Because maybe, who knows, maybe Bib Fortuna was not paying well enough. But what was interesting was they recreated Richard Marquand's voice, who was the voice of the original EV-99, and it sounded exactly like they got the tone perfectly. So
well, and the kitchen scene, there's so much there talking about the flashbacks, for talking about the mods, for all the things that we talked about. The kitchen portion of this episode was not something I expected to be excited about or enjoy or whatever. But first of all, we have the rat catcher, which we've talked about a couple of times already. For Patrick's sake, we're bringing it back again. The Lep droid, the rat catcher, there's a history there with Clone Wars, and, this droid showing up in other places. But we had and I didn't coin this term, so I'm not going to claim it, but we do have General Clevis.
Which, do you know where he was seen first?
Where?
He was seen on the cruise ship in Attack of the Clones with Padme and Anakin.
The pancake droid?
Yes, the pancake droid. Yep. That was him. See?
That's fantastic. So I love that. But I think the thing that stood out to me in the kitchen scene more than anything in this entire episode was that we know that this is a galaxy far, far away, long before us, whatever it was. Everything in that kitchen are things that you would find in all of our kitchens now. There were butcher knives, there were pots and pans. Like, there might as well have been like a Force Lock Cuisinart toaster. Like, it was
There probably
There
was
was a
one
point.
back there somewhere.
There was a point where they went, okay, cast iron skillets are fine.
Yeah.
We're just going to roll with the rest of it.
Well, so actually, there was one thing as we talk about the LEP droid, which I found very interesting, and it actually ties into the BK comment I made. Boba Fett is loyal to people who are loyal to him. We saw it in the very first episode with the Gamorreans. We saw this LEP droid panic when he realized who it was, shut himself
Mhm.
down. But he was back in when they were having the dinner with the 5 families or the 3 families. He was there working when the Rancor popped up from the floor. We saw him pop along in fear. So Boba kept him. The guy. So who's ever loyal to Boba, he remains extremely loyal too, and that's an interesting character trait that we keep seeing here.
Something that should be brought up is that the Rancor is so loyal to Boba that he chose the exact right moment to grab up Great right during that conversation. That's a true friend. That he was listening in and he said, "Now's the chance."
Normally timing is a comedy thing, and Patrick knows that because he dabbles in these worlds. But clearly, that Rancor has dramatic timing as well. So, there's certainly something there.
Yeah. So there's two questions that I put out on social, and I want to share the answers because I think it helps us look a little bit toward the future. The first one was, after seeing this episode, what are the chances we're going to see Kira? A couple weeks ago, we were pretty certain, actually, at the end of episode 3, when the Pikes were walking down the gangway. I think a lot of us thought that Kira was going to be behind, and a lot of us thought, well, she's definitely coming. And now it appears that a lot of people are saying it's not going to happen, and who knows, right? So, Patrick, you're giving it thumbs down. You don't think it's going to happen?
I don't, but I'm also so fascinated by the psyche of those 2.6% who are saying it's guaranteed. I want to know what they are thinking that is guaranteeing this right now. I don't think it's going to happen. I had read some of that stuff obviously before the season started, and it sounded cool. Like, I was into it if that's where it's going. It just feels like at this point we're 4 episodes in, and if there's been almost zero hint at it, I don't see it happening.
Right.
They're also doing a lot with her in the comics right now, and I feel like they wouldn't. My guess, I don't know anything. My guess is they would not let them do that with her in the comics if they were going to do stuff with her in live action. That's my hypothesis.
Can I ask a question about that? And because I don't know, because like Pete said, I'm not a comics reader. So Patrick, you have the insight on this.
Yeah.
For the time period where we are now with Book of Boba Fett and where she is in the comics, what is that gap? What is that space like? Do you know?
Where she's popping, I'm not totally caught up on the comics either, but
that's right.
Where she is right now in the comics is between Empire and, because it was all about them bringing Han to Jabba, like the big fight going on between all the
kind of the auction and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's where she is right now. So a few years off, but my gut is just, if they're giving her for live action, they wouldn't let other people go fiddling around with stuff.
Yeah, I would augment that with the same reason why I felt from day one that we are not going to see Omega in this series, is because we haven't seen the end of Omega's story. So if you show her now, then you know that there's no dramatic tension. She's going to survive no matter what happens in the Bad Batch. Same thing from a comic book standpoint. If Kira is here, she survived whatever happens in the War of the Bounty Hunters and the Crimson Reign. Yeah. So to that end, however, it raises the next question that I asked people, and that was, have we seen the big bad in Book of Boba Fett yet? And 20% of the people say, yes, we have. It's the Pikes. It's definitely the Pikes. And 73% of people think that whoever the big bad is hasn't been revealed. And the reason I think that's interesting is because I don't think the Pikes are that scary right now. And I don't think any of us have had a reason to be like, oh my God, the Pikes are coming. He better build an army. Yeah. So what do you think we're going to get for a big bad? Or do you think it is the Pikes, but blown up somehow?
Now here's my question. Do we need a bad?
That's a question I haven't thought of.
Do we need one? Like, can this just be a story of what's happening versus like, here's a couple little bad, like, I guess Mando's big bad is Gideon, and Gideon doesn't show up basically until that finale. So I guess they could be waiting,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question.
I don't know who it would be.
Well, and I have considered, and I love that question, Patrick, because I haven't considered it in the context of do we need a big bad? That's a really great question. Of course, it's one that's going to fester a little bit over the course of this weekend, because that's who I am and that's what I do. Where I have been up to this point, and I think I even maybe said it on the Deucecast Extra, shout out to my friend Mikey and those guys over there on Tuesday nights. Star Wars, and especially in this current era of Star Wars we have with the TV shows, there's a bridge. There's a thing that connects this series to what the next series is going to be.
Yeah,
we get Mando showing up in we get Boba showing up in Mando. We get Fennec showing up in Mando, and those connect to the Book of Boba Fett, which we didn't know we were getting, and that was a surprise. What we do know that we get in Mando season 2, in the episode The Jedi, where Ahsoka faces off with what's her name? When they have their fight.
Yeah.
And she asks the question, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Yeah.
Right.
We know that's setting up the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
I agree that I don't think the Pikes are scary enough. I went back, and I said this last week, I went back and rewatched the Clone Wars episodes about the Pikes to kind of get ready for this next week. And like the Black Sun, which were only there for a minute when Maul throws his saber and decapitates everybody, like that was way more scary than the Pikes themselves. So for me, it feels like we could get a Thrawn tease. I'm not even necessarily saying we see him, but I could see, because the Empire's in disarray. We're in between New Republic, First Order, that kind of thing. Like, it's kind of wild. It's uncontrolled space. I think there's a potential, at least for a mention of Thrawn in a pseudo Thanos manner as a big bad.
Interesting.
But does Bo care about Thrawn? Like,
it's very bold. I recognize that. And it's the easy path as well. It's the easy choice. Like,
I'm happy that you're throwing out takes. It's good.
I think that the only reason I think that we need a big bad is because something has scared the shit out of the Hutts, right? And if the Hutts are willing to be like, hey, listen, we're sorry, you can keep the Wookiee, here's a Rancor, we're leaving, you should too. It's not because of the fish people, right? And that's but to your point, Nick, maybe that is a setup for maybe this show is just going to show his rise to power by getting the Pikes out of there. And then whatever is bigger than the Pikes is still brewing somewhere. It'll be, a post-credit scene.
And I feel like we have to assume. I feel like we have to assume by the time we get to Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, that sequel trilogy era, Thrawn is over. Because if he was that big of a deal,
right,
there would have been something in there for all of that. So it's an in-between period that they get to work with, play around with. So it's the opportune time for them to float something, play with it for a little bit, and then get out. Because Kenobi's going to be before where we are right now.
Yeah.
Andor is going to be before where we are right now. So we're looking at what do we have left in between.
I mean, maybe it's just Thanos.
Maybe it's Mephisto. That's everybody's favorite.
It's Mephisto. Dang it! I didn't even think of Mephisto. It's got to be him.
See? That's what we're not doing right.
That's so funny. Well, we do know that based on the end of this particular episode, when they were talking about how much money do we have, we can buy muscle, and we heard the familiar Mandalorian theme song. I mean, it was so fun. It was so obvious. It was almost like comical that they did it.
Like you expected the last shot of the episode was going to be him looking towards the camera before it cut to black.
Right. Yeah, it was so much so. My 9-year-old, when we watched it and that came on, he looked at me and he's like, "Why are they playing the Mandalorian music?" Like he didn't make the connection that we all did.
But
Mhm.
it was like when the 9-year-old is like, oh yeah, that's the Silver Guy's music.
Yeah.
So are we definitely seeing him in episode or chapter 5? And what are your predictions and theories moving forward for the show? Patrick, let's start with you. You're the guest.
Wow. Way to throw all these big questions at me
Sure.
right
Yeah.
away.
You know, welcome to the show.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we will probably see him in 5. I think, although it would be fun if we just never see him. It would be fun if they just played that music and then we never see him. I think you'll probably see him in 5. Rest of the show, I mean, there's some rumors, and there's one that someone keeps throwing out in the chat, and I don't know if we want to say it out loud because I don't want to spoil stuff for people. But I don't see that being. Oh, okay, we're just gonna say it. Yeah. All right, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, rumors that he's gonna show up, but I don't see it being a big thing.
Right.
I see it being him sitting in one location and one scene that they could have shot in a day. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't see this being. I don't think he came in and filmed for 2 weeks. You know?
Right.
That's my guess. I really don't. I don't know what to expect for the rest of the show. I have no idea. I hope that the end of the show. This is what I hope because this is what I'm missing. I hope that the end of this season he has fully repopulated that palette with a bunch of Muppets. You know, that's what I want. I don't know if it's satisfying, but I just miss. I miss having that room be full of people.
Yeah, the empty palace is a little.
Whatever.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't really have any predictions. I'm kind of the guy who just like sits back and lets it happen, and then when it happens, I just go, "Well, yeah, that's of course what happens." You know, I don't theorizing in my head does not always. It's not as creative as what it's going to be. So why bother? That's how I think about it.
Well, and I think all Star Wars fans, and we touched on it earlier. I think we all hurt ourselves sometimes by trying to pick it. Right? I mean, I've said it before. The Last Jedi was both my when I walked out of it, I said it was the best and the worst Star Wars movie I'd ever seen because I had in my mind I had decided what was going to happen in that movie and none of it happened. And so there's a couple things that play into what you're saying that I think are really interesting. You have Ming-Na Wen saying, as we said on the news tonight, saying that she hopes people go back and watch the whole series.
Hang on one second. I just wanted to talk about this comment really quick. This is.
Yeah, Michael Nip is saying that female Tusken is Kira in disguise and she'll be back.
All right, Michael. Michael, you know what? Here's what I'll say. Michael, if that's true, you can Venmo request me $100 and I will send it to you. If that gets through. 100 American dollars.
You heard it here.
Yep. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No,
that's great.
That was a comment that needed to be discussed. But I think what's interesting is that we now with the dinner scene of the crime families, we've now seen all of the preview clip stuff. So these last 3 episodes, we know nothing. We have no idea what's coming. And the only thing we know is that they are set up for the war. And I'd put a pretty heavy bet on that we're done with the flashbacks. I mean, because they brought them all the way up through to the killing Bib Fortuna on the throne, pulling him off, like all the way up to here's where we are. Right so far as to have the medical droid say, "Congratulations, Lord Fett, your healing is done." Okay,
that's not just because we need to fill a minute. Like they're making it a point.
It's very specific.
And these 3 episodes are directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, Dave Filoni, and Jon Favreau. So we have 3 directors who haven't touched the series yet, who were part of Mandalorian and have experience in this world now. So I think we're in for. I think the series is about to like shift lanes really hard, like jerk the wheel to the left, and who knows where this is going.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I think it's gonna be good stuff. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'm with you completely, and I think that for all my big predictions, for all my Thrawn predictions, for all my whatever, like I'm also with Patrick. Like I'm just excited to receive it. I'm just excited to get more Star Wars, to get things that I don't have a bunch of preconceived notions too. I admire that Patrick talks about, he's a spoiler guy. Like, let's read it because I want to hear. But on the other side of that, you want to hear what's right and also what is wrong.
Yeah.
I ride the fine line between, like, I have good friends who are like, I'm blocking out every trailer. I'm not watching anything. Like, I'm not literally, like, they've created Twitter filters. Like, I'm not doing that. Sure. My feeling is, if Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm gives it to me, they know what they're doing, and I'm going to trust that process. And I realize that they're not going to give me something that's going to spoil it. We know by this point, based on what we've seen everything that's been in a trailer. So these next 3 episodes, we're in wide open space, free country. Yep. What are we going to get? You said it earlier, you know, there is a comic book line that is War of the Bounty Hunters, but we may be also coming into the live action version of War of the Bounty Hunters. Finnick very purposely, and of course we get it with the music cue, said, you know, muscles available when you have money. We assume Mando, but there are so many other people that could be. It could be Cobb Vanth. It could be Bo-Katan. It
could be my boy Dengar. Give me a little Dengar.
It could be Dengar. It could be Bosk. It could be IG. Like, there's so many ways that can go. And I'm just here to say, if we can get Rainn Wilson as Dengar, as Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute wrapped in toilet paper from The Office, like, I'm totally here for that. But all those things aside, I don't have expectations on it. Like, I'm excited that I'm getting more Star Wars, and for a series about a character that was never one of my OG original go-tos, like, I'm totally here for it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think we're in a good spot. And that is the wild thing. We are literally going into this week without having seen a single frame. And we're in we've now have, in a way, we almost have what some expectations were for Book of Boba Fett. We're going to get how he got friendly with Fennec, how he got out of the Sarlacc pit, how he got his ship back, how he got on the throne. We got that. Now, what is part 2 of this show going to be about? So it's a really exciting time. So, but well, this has been great. Patrick, where can people find you? Tell us a little bit about the George Lucas Talk Show for people who may not know about it. And where and when.
The George Lucas Talk Show is a talk show that I produce and I guess co-host, kind of. I'm on camera for it. Hosted by this guy Cotnoir, who's a comedian and actor. He's in Party and Mabel and a whole bunch of stuff. He plays George Lucas. His sidekick is Griffin from the Blank Check podcast and from The Tick, the most recent Tick, who plays Watto as a Ed McMahon-esque sidekick. They interview real famous people as themselves. So we've had Whoopi Goldberg on, we've had John Hamm on, we've had Darcy Carden, Jason Mantzoukas, like so many people. Julian Glover was on, like bonkers people. Julian Glover interacting with Watto is truly a sight to behold. I think the first thing he said to him, Griffin came on a little late, and he goes, "Oh, now a man with a nose here." And it was like, it was the funniest, truly the funniest interaction I've had in a while. But we actually have a show, if you're watching this live or very soon after, we have a show tomorrow night with Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric, and Deborah Wilson from Mad TV and Jedi Fallen Order and Rise of Skywalker and a whole bunch of stuff. That's tomorrow night, the 22nd. You can find all the episodes on YouTube. I recommend finding guests that you like and then watching their episodes, because it's easier to get in if you know and like the guest. But it's very fun. It's very silly. And if you like this, you will like it.
That's awesome.
What else? You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Cotnoir, PatrickCotnoir. Yeah, that's about. Oh, I should show you my shirt. This is a shirt that a fan made me.
Yeah.
It says, it's Jar Jar Binks with his tongue, and it says the tongue was a muscle. And if you go, we were on Jar Jar Binks' Wikipedia page on the show one week, and noticed there was a link to a Wikipedia page for tongue, and the first line of it was, the tongue was a muscle in past tense, and we found that very funny, so someone made me Bring the Noise on Twitter is her name. But
that's outstanding.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was super fun.
this was great. This was a ton of fun, and we'll be glad to have you on. Hey, if you're a Bad Batch fan, join us for our Bad Batch ones when we do those.
I will come back whenever you'd like me to come back.
That's fantastic. Nick,
Yeah.
what's going on? We have this week on ATG Cast. We have my 150th episode. That I will be the guest. My father's interviewing me. It's a very interesting and fun hour and 10 minutes or so. My dad is the reason I got into science fiction and horror and trivia and all this stuff, and so it was fun to have him talk to me. And then you have your the week after, we have the next episode of your canon study. Who's the guest going to be?
Yes. The week after you will be Podcast of the Wells, episode 3 of our canon study of Return of the Jedi. And it's going to be Matt and Sean from the Blue Bantha Milk Company. If you know Matt and Sean, they are writing artificial intelligence written scripts for a variety of Star Wars properties, and they are so fun. They're recorded as live table reads. We have a lot of our friends who are playing those characters and being a part of those reads. So Matt and Sean come and talk to me about the 3rd chapter of Return of the Jedi, and we dig into kind of the deep thoughts. What are we getting out of those episodes?
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you to everybody who hung out with us in the chat tonight, and I hope to see you all next week when we get into Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. We'll have Heather Antos with us. Patrick, thank you for hanging out with us, and Nick, may the Force be with you.
Always.